Day 107. Hilchos may be spoken l'toelos only if all necessary conditions are met. In this, the concluding chapter of Sefer Chofetz Chaim, we will learn when halacha permits us to speak b'chilus l'toelos for a constructive purpose. Consider the following example. The Steins are considering building an extension onto the back of their house. They have met with Yosef Kriegler of Kriegler Construction and are on the verge of signing a contract with him. Mr. Stein's good friend, Henoch Wellenstein, is dismayed. He has had a terrible experience with Mr. Kriegler when he made extensive renovations on his new home. When the job was 80% done, Mr. Kriegler requested that the balance be paid in full. Mr. Wellenstein complied, and after receiving his money, Mr. Kriegler vanished for 6 months. When he finally reappeared, he offered no explanation, other than to say, "I couldn't get to this job until now, but now I'll finish it fast." It took another 2 months until he finished the week's work that remained. The Chofetz Chaim lists 5 conditions that need to be fulfilled for Mr. Wellenstein to be allowed to share this information with his friend Mr. Stein. 1. He must be certain that Mr. Kriegler actually was at fault. If, for example, Kriegler had taken ill and this was why the work dragged on for an additional 2 months, it would be wrong to mention it at all. 2. He must not exaggerate. 3. His intentions must be to protect Mr. Stein from harm, not to get even with Mr. Kriegler. 4. If there is any way to protect Mr. Stein without speaking badly of Mr. Kriegler, then he must take that course of action. For example, he might recommend another contractor with a sterling reputation and make no mention of Mr. Kriegler. 5. He must be certain that the only result will be that Mr. Stein will not hire Mr. Kriegler for the job. In other words, Mr. Kriegler will not suffer any loss other than this particular job, which he had been hoping to get. However, if Mr. Stein is known to have a temper and will publicly humiliate Mr. Kriegler the next time they meet, then Mr. Wellenstein should not provide any information. Now, let us consider the following scenario. Mr. Wellenstein decides that, in his opinion of Mr. Kriegler, is absolutely correct, and he must warn Mr. Stein. However, Mr. Stein's reaction is, "I refuse to believe such Hilchos. I have known Mr. Kriegler for 20 years. I can't believe that he wouldn't honor his commitment. Most probably you did something to really get him upset, and that's why he was slow in finishing the job." Mr. Kriegler was hired, and sure enough, after collecting the balance of payment, he disappeared for 6 weeks without completing the job. Mr. Stein finally contacted him, lost his temper, and said, "I see that Wellenstein was right when he said that you would vanish once you got your money. I never should have trusted you." If Mr. Wellenstein knows that it is unlikely that Mr. Stein will take his warning seriously, with the result of being that Mr. Stein will later speak Hilchos, then he should not warn him. In a nutshell, Hilchos may be spoken l'toelos only if all necessary conditions are met. Have a wonderful day.